your patience, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to bring this meeting to order, please. At this Committee of Adjustment meeting held on May 25th, 2022, come to order at 7:06 p.m. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Cooney, seconded by Vander Willen. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? See two no's. And Mr. Webster's going to say no also.
I have none. Yes. I'm going to try to get the video on here in a moment.
Okay. So no pecuniary interests. There are no let the record show that there are no pecuniary interests this evening. Going to the previous minutes, the Committee of Adjustment minutes dated April 27th, 2022 be adopted as presented. Are there any questions or concerns from the committee? May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Cooney, seconded by Vander Willen. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome to Committee of Adjustment meeting to allow the public an opportunity to express their views regarding the proposed minor variances and consents within the Township of Springwater. Each applicant and their agent, if applicable, will be given the opportunity to present to the applications to the committee and public. Additional information on each of the applications, including any presentation materials, is available in the committee agenda on the Township website. Following, those members of the public whom registered to make oral submissions prior to 4:30 p.m. yesterday, May the 24th, 2022, will be given the opportunity to do so. All oral submissions, whoever's trying to live stream there, do you want to stop? Thanks. All oral submissions will be included in this meeting and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker, as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Information of Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the Township website. All comments or questions should be addressed through the chair. Madam Secretary Treasurer, you're ready to proceed. Thank you. I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer, please introduce the first application, item number 4.1 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Item 4.1 on the agenda are minor variance applications A0422 through to A1022, submitted by Huron Creek Developments, owner of lands known municipally as 44 Beverly Street, 46 Beverly Street, 48 Beverly Street, 59 Allenwood Road, 31 Allenwood Road, 54 Allenwood Road, and 58 Allenwood Road. The purpose and effect of the applications is to permit an increased maximum lot coverage on 7 residential lots within the Elmvale Village subdivision. 6 out of the 7 applications are proposing a maximum lot coverage of 40%, and 1 application is proposing a maximum lot coverage of 43%, whereas section 4.4.64 requires a lot coverage maximum of 35%.
Thank you. Has there been any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, the chief building officials stated that the proposed dwellings contain patio doors with more than 3 risers, which may lead to further minor variance applications from future homeowners if they wish to construct decks, and that the doors can be blocked off to permit occupancy. Ainley Group, acting as the township's engineering consultants, provided comments in a letter dated April 26 and email dated April 29th, concluding that they have no further concerns with the minor variance applications for the 7 lots in Elmvale Village. And the manager of Roads and Fleet, the director of Fire and Emergency Services, and the director of Finance all stated no concerns.
Thank you. May I please have the applicant introduce themselves and take us through what it is you're looking for this evening?
Good evening. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Go ahead.
Great. So if everybody can hear me, my name is Tyler Kaywall from Innovative Planning Solutions. We are here representing our clients and their minor variance applications for 7 lots within phase 1A2 and phase 1B of the Elmville Village subdivision. This relates to increased lot coverage, as was mentioned. Going to the next slide, phase 1A2 and phase 1B pictured here of the Elmville Village subdivision is located at the west end of Elmville, west end of the settlement area, on the south side of Queen Street West and west of the former CN railway line. The surrounding uses include to the north, the existing phase 1A1 and future residential blocks phase 1C. To the west is the Elmville boundary and rural and agricultural lands beyond. South includes future residential lands, including draft approved phase 2, also by the same applicants. And east of the subject lands include future development lands, also again owned by the applicants, as well as a former CN railway line. And you can see that line here. And again, the portions of phase 1 subdivision we're interested in today are here. You can see the register, I should say, lot fabric. For some very brief background, the subdivision, again, Plan 51M-1132, consists of registered building lots primarily for single detached dwellings in bungalow and two-story built forms. Subdivision registration did occur in November of 2017. I know we'll show the 7 lots specifically on the next several slides, but again, all located in this subdivision. You can see here all 7 lots subject to application are zoned residential 1, exception 64 or R164 in the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw 5000. The site-specific R1-64 zoning was implemented in May of 2019 with the passing of bylaw 5000-287, and it did not include a provision for increased lot coverage at the time relative to the R1 standard, as architectural drawings and floor plans had not been finalized at that time. For some context, Springwater zoning bylaw requires that decks, in addition to house footprints themselves, be included in the lot coverage calculation. Portions of the subdivision are built, and some homeowners wanting to construct backyard decks have applied in the past for variances for increase in permitted lot coverage, thereby permitting the construction of their desired deck, which goes above and beyond the 35%. Specific examples include the lot at 29 Allenwood Road, where a committee approved a variance for a maximum lot coverage of 40%, where 35% was required, and 32 Beverly Street, where committee approved a variance for a maximum lot coverage of 39%, where 35 was again required. So here you can see specifically via the red dots, each individual one of the 7 lots affected by these applications before you today. They represent lots 7, 8, 9, 14, 26, 61, and 63 of, again, Plan 51M-1132. Municipal addresses for reference, again, are 44, 46, 48 Beverly Street, as well as 59, 31, 54, and 58 Allenwood Road. Under approved zoning, each lot again is permitted a maximum lot coverage of 45%, which is again standard for the R1 zone. The applicants today are requesting relief for increased lot coverage for these 7 lots, in particular, as each one is proposed to accommodate a bungalow dwelling unit model, which inherently provides a larger footprint relative to 2-story models, as living space, of course, is contained on a single floor. And hence why these 7 and not other lots within the subdivision, because the rest, I believe, are 2-story or fall under the maximum lot coverage. The applicant seeks to permit a maximum lot coverage of 40% for lots, again, 8, 9, 14, 26, 61, and 63. Real lot coverages for the dwellings on these lots would range from 36.6% to 37.6%, excluding the proposed deck, so meaning just the house footprint itself. A lot coverage of 40% for these 6 lots would permit decks ranging in size between 142 square feet to 204 square feet, depending on the size of each lot. The 7th affected lot, which hasn't been mentioned yet, is lot 7. It is unique in that this model sold features a widened garage, adding another 150 square feet to the dwelling. And then plus, if we factor in the 10 by 17 foot deck, that would bring the total lot coverage for this lot to 42.2%. Important to note, aside from this widened garage, the dwelling unit proposed here is otherwise the same exact model as the other 6 lots. As such, the lot coverage uniquely for this lot is requested at 43%, where again, the other 6 are requested at 40%. To comply with the 35% lot coverage requirement, the footprint of the model would actually need to be reduced anywhere from 9.3 meters squared or 100 square feet to 14.7 meters squared or 158 square feet for reference. And the unit for lot 7 would need to be reduced by 25.8 meters or 278 square feet, which obviously poses significant challenges for these bungalow units, as it would greatly reduce the usable floor area and functionality of the units, which are modest in size for bungalows. Here we have a sample concept plan for lot 8 as an example. Actually, let me just back up for a second, just to make sure everyone understands this table very clearly. Of course, all lots subject to the application are shown on the far left. Maximum lot coverage as permitted again is 35% for all, shown in the second column. Next column over, when it says actual dwelling lot coverage, those numbers again, these figures again are referring to the real footprint coverages as a portion of each individual lot. So in other words, if lot coverage was simply the building footprint, these are the values that we would be looking at. And the degree of actual variance is the percentage relative to that, and it's also shown in feet. And then the next column over, second from last, is if we factor in a buffer for decks, basically the difference between the real lot coverages of the footprints and what we're requesting, the 40 and then 43%. The buffer, what's left over, would be, of course, for decks in addition to the house, allowing us to reach that 40%, and in the case of lot 7, 43%. Again, once I finish my presentation, if there are any further questions on this to clarify, I can certainly do so. Here we have a concept plan example for lot 8 with the driveway in dark gray, the house footprint in beige, the landscaped open space in green. In this example, the house itself provides a lot coverage of 37.1%, with the remaining 2.9% of lot area to that, again, 40% requested, providing 178-foot potential size a deck in the rear yard, available to accommodate the deck and maintain within that 40% coverage as requested. As indicated in the zoning table, this and all other homes in the lot and lots will otherwise be in full compliance with the R164 zoning, of course, aside from the lot coverage. As you can see, no other variances except for the coverage identified. Floor plans and elevations of the proposed bungalow model are shown here. The model provides for 3 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms across 156 square meters, or roughly 1,600 square foot of finished living space. The total dwelling footprint is 213 meters square, or 2,200 square feet, which includes a 2-car garage and porch. And as mentioned, the 7th affected lot is unique in that otherwise it is the same except for a widened garage, which adds another 150 square feet to the dwelling, with a total footprint of 227 meters squared, or just over 2,400 square feet. The applications were submitted in December, and since then, our engineers at Tatham have been working closely with the town's engineering consultant at Ainley to determine any impact to stormwater in the subdivision, which may result from increased lot coverage, resulting in increase in an impermeable surface for stormwater. An as-built survey of the existing pond, which basically confirms volume of the pond, was completed in July of last year. The stormwater management model has been analyzed relative to the proposed minor variances by Tatham Engineering. The added impervious area as a result of the proposal is shown to increase the 100-year peak flow rate from a mere 0.17 meters squared per second to 0.18 meters cubed per second. Based on the revised modeling, the existing stormwater pond can support an added lot coverage and impervious surfaces proposed without improvements required to the pond. This understood the township's engineering consultant, again, Ainley Group, agrees with this analysis. So in short, what this is saying is should these 7 variances get approved, obviously to a small degree, it'll potentially increase impermeable surfaces and basically the between Townsend, Ainley, and Tatham, we've determined that the pond volume can accommodate these variances as requested. The Planning Act permits variances, of course, provided that 4 tests can be met. It must be demonstrated that the applications are minor, desirable, and conform to both the general intent of the official plan and the general intent of the zoning bylaw. So are the variances minor? Well, the variances represent a 5 to 8% increase above the current maximum and a 1.6 to 4.5% increase for the dwelling footprints themselves. Again, excluding decks in that case. Increased lot coverage does not impact neighborhood character, as massing will remain consistent with the area, and all other zoning requirements will be met, as the requested lot coverages do not trigger other zoning noncompliance. Also, capacity, of course, within the stormwater pond is available as demonstrated. Next, are they desirable? Well, they are required to achieve a functional and desirable bungalow layout, because, as mentioned, bungalows do, of course, take up more ground floor, and there's less wiggle room in that sense to accommodate. Bungalows do contribute to a desirable and diverse mix of housing types suitable for many household ages, sizes, incomes, and lifestyles relative to 2-story models. And the units are aesthetically and functionally compatible, of course, with the surrounding subdivision. Do they conform to the general intent of the official plan? Well, these variances align with the goals and the policies of the official plan, improving quality of life residents of the dwellings and supporting housing supply and diversity in the area. They also support development of appropriately sized bungalow dwellings while avoiding adverse impacts on adjacent properties. And lastly, for the 4th test, do they conform to the general intent of the zoning bylaw? The subject lots are not overbuilt or overdeveloped, and that's demonstrated by the fact that the gross floor area, height, and massing are all less than abutting 2-story units, and again comply with the R1 current approved zoning. As well, visually, the additional lot coverage will be unnoticeable, and all other zoning requirements will be met. So in summary, the applicant is requesting minor variance approval for increased lot coverages for 7 registered lots within phase 1 of the Elmville Village subdivision. The proposed variances meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act in that they are minor, desirable, and conform to the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The variances support housing diversity, specifically bungalow units, as the desirable options for many household incomes, sizes, and lifestyles. An engineering analysis supports the proposed variances with no improvements required to the existing stormwater pond to factor in. And lastly, approval of these variances support good planning and would enable the applicant to proceed to building permit and allow occupancy of the homes. So this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments at this time. We do note that the Township Planning did recommend in the staff report approval of these 7 applications. As well, I should mention that David Reed of Tatham Engineering is also on the call, and he's available to answer any questions if there's anything more technical in nature regarding stormwater. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public registered to make any oral submissions this evening?
Thank you. There are no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission.
Thank you. Members of the committee, obviously you'll have some questions. Who's going to start? Mr. Vanderwill, and I'll let you start tonight.
Just a question with regards to when these decks are coming to us. Can we make it so that that they're not unistone or concrete underneath them, like so that they're either made of wood or composite. This way the water can still fall through the deck and onto the ground, so that there is not that runoff. That's just my concern there. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps the engineer would like to discuss that.
Yeah, there would definitely be options for a deck that wouldn't be just straight concrete. There's permeable pavement you could use, which would look similar to Unistone, or just a typical wood deck would also do would achieve the same result and would reduce the runoff.
Thank you. You satisfied with that answer, member?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Member Cooney, member Webster, any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, I have one through Chair Gannon to Planner Belcourt. If I could ask, the CBO's comments seem to reflect that he may not have understood that the, I guess the proposed coverage included decks in that regard, because he indicated that having, there may be further variances in the future to accommodate that. Just to confirm that these proposals, and I've heard the presentation there, they do account for a reasonable sized deck, correct? And is the CBO aware of that?
Thank you, Member Cooney, through Chair Gannon to yourself. That it is my understanding that that may have been an oversight. As Mr. Kowal said from IPS, the percentage minor variance presented before you tonight does allow for some buffer room, and that is a discussion that staff had directly with the applicant's agent, knowing that we have seen other minor variances with the deck. So to avoid future minor variances, that's why we asked for that. As the CBO stated in his comments, there may be other solutions, just steps down or blocking off the doors in the meantime if the person does not decide to have a full deck, but there is a little bit of wiggle room. So perhaps it's a small landing and they want to build a shed or something like that, but there is that buffer built into the variances themselves.
Okay, thank you. And just to, an additional part to that, a garden shed which would not fall under a permit could include or could increase impervious value of the property in addition to the deck. That obviously hasn't been accounted for, correct?
Thank you, Member Cooney, through Chair Gannon to yourself again. The maximum lot coverage is applicable to the lot, whether a permit is required or not. So the zoning provisions are applicable to said lot, regardless of whether you need a building permit. So the same setback requirements apply the same lot coverage. So that buffer that's built in would allow for either a deck or a shed, but or something to that nature, a small addition or porch. However, regardless if they need a building permit, they still need to comply with township zoning policy.
Okay, thank you very much. My next question is to the planner, the applicant's planner and the engineer. I understand from the previous correspondence that the increase, these proposed lots, the proposed increase will push the pond to its pre-well capacity. Further applications may not be approved in the future because of that. Are you aware of that?
I can let David speak to that perhaps.
Yes, we worked closely with Ainley to have a look at the capacity of the current pond. And yes, we are aware that we are at that capacity with these minor variances.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Member Webster.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Further to Member Cooney's comment, what about where the property to the east, the triangle piece that runs to the west of the railroad track into the east of this property? Should that come to development, where would it drain, or what stormwater management pond, or where would the stormwater go from that particular piece of property? Did anybody answer that question for me?
Is that the property beside the park there along the rail?
Go ahead, Planner Belcourt.
Is it? It was taken into account when we
The west of
originally.
the railroad track.
Sorry, thank you, Chair Gannon, through yourself to Member Webster. Just to confirm, are we talking east, I guess, of the rail trail property, or are we talking to the south of the current development? There's two triangular pieces just in close vicinity.
Thank you, Planner Belcourt, and through you, Chair Gannon, I would think that whole triangle there, regardless of whether it includes the park or whether it's the adjacent, like the remainder of the property, that there's a chunk there that could be developed. And I'm wondering what that would look like. Where would the stormwater go from there? Does it go to the west into the existing stormwater, or where would it go?
I'm just gonna share my screen for a second here if you guys can. Okay, so there is, can you guys all see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So there is this parcel here to the south, which is phase 2 of the Huron Creek development. That is, I believe, and David or Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, will drain to the same storm pond, but that has been already calculated and included into those capacity calculations. There's also these pieces over here that are somewhat triangular. Those are a separate application that is going through a separate planning process that would have its own facilities or requirements.
Chair Gannon, may I follow up on that?
Go ahead.
I'm actually thinking about the property that fronts on Queen Street. There, yes.
Thank you for clarifying, Member Webster. This property, again, is under separate ownership with no current development applications on it. If there were to be a development proposed for these lands, there would have to be some type of stormwater management proposal and review to take place for that specific development.
May I follow up on that, Chair Gannon?
Go ahead.
Some of that property includes the corner that's municipal property, where the park is. But I don't see how you could freeze essentially that triangle, because you can't accommodate stormwater there. I don't see a stormwater pond management opportunity there. So you would essentially freeze that for development, I think, from what I see. Perhaps you could comment.
I can comment on that if you want. So
Go
I
ahead.
believe that property was accounted for in the original stormwater management report for the pond, up to an imperviousness of, I think, 50%. I'd have to double check those numbers, and if that development is to increase the imperviousness over 50%, we'd have to look at other options for stormwater management, which would be an underground system or low impact development methods such as infiltration trenches and so on. So there are other options for that piece of land.
Anything further, Mr.
Thank you for
Webster?
that response. Yes, Chair Gannon, through you too. I don't accept that response as 50% is, I think, a very minimum amount, since my view of that property is that it will be commercial industrial as opposed to residential. The variance at 5% is somewhat concerning to me as well. We have a number of people who have applied already in subdivision, as pointed out in the application. And if 5% is the maximum, then this committee will need, and subsequent committees will need to know that the variance is 5%, because the stormwater management pond will only accommodate 5% variance. So I'd like to know how that plays out as well. If somebody could comment on that, please.
Reed?
Thank you, Chair Gannon, through you to Member Webster. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you're saying that there would be a standard to look at a 5% increase for other properties? Is that what you're referring to, or, sorry, just seeking clarification?
Yes, thank you, Brianna, through the mayor, yeah, or through the to the Chair Gannon. Yes, I think that it appears to me through this application that the total variance could not exceed 5%, and yet there is no definition of minor variance in any committee in any approval or application that I've been part of. I don't know that we actually have a 5% definition of variance. And so if that is the definition in order to accommodate this particular stormwater management pond, I think we need to make sure that this is in our decision. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Gannon, to Member Webster. So to clarify, there's a 5% ask on 6 properties, so 5% in lot coverage, so from 35 to 40%, and then an 8% increase on one of the lots from 35 to 43%. That's specific to these 7 lots and does not apply to any of the other lots in the subdivision outside of those 2 previous minor variances, which Mr. Kowal indicated. And through the planning report, it also was mentioned that staff would not consider any future minor variances in this subdivision for increases in lot coverage that would have impacts on the stormwater management pond, for the fact that it will be nearing or at capacity following the approval of these variances, with the other developments that are approved that drain into that same stormwater management pond. So any future minor variance request would either not be considered, or larger discussions or policies at the township level would need to be instilled related to stormwater management and improvements to the servicing in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. The planner for the applicant. You have your hand raised. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Just to add to that, and I think David can jump in just to provide more context if needed, but from my understanding of the engineering analysis, just to clarify, based on the existing survey in terms of volume of the stormwater pond, it could potentially, again, hypothetically, accommodate 23 similar variances of similar scale. So 23 potential variances within the subdivision of similar additional lot coverage. Again, that's not what we're applying for here today. We're applying for 7, and there's no indication that we're going to come forward with 23. But that's just the 23 is calculated to be as of today the limit, the upset limit of what the pond could accommodate based on volume. So we wouldn't be technically at the exact maximum would be if these 7 are permitted today. It could potentially be up to 23. But obviously we're not asking for that today. And as Brian mentioned, it would be up to whether it's our applicants in the future or other landowners in the area who use the pond. It would be their job to demonstrate that their development application or variance will be minor or will be able to be accommodated from a stormwater perspective. And whether it's other solutions, that would come by our applicants following the approval. So.
Thank you. Can I ask you, sir, to put up the slide with the subdivision?
Yes, I can.
Showing the number of properties.
Is this the slide you're referring to?
So the entire, that's it. Okay. So how many properties are there in total?
So in these phases that I guess the lands that we're here to discuss today in phase one, it looks to be about 67
About
residential
75.
lots, detached lots. Yeah.
75, maybe, being that Drysdale has lot 75 on it.
Correct. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, 75 total lots. Yeah.
Okay, and of that total, approximately how many homes are already built?
That I am not sure, but I know portions through to Drysdale are constructed, but I believe it's more so the south side, and of course that includes the lots. Some of the lots that we're talking about today are not constructed yet. I think where this discussion came up was, from my understanding, Huron Creek Developments was going to be applying for a building permit as they finalized their models, and through that process, it was obviously identified that variances would be required for lot coverage if these were the models to be constructed.
What my concern is that I'm going to suggest that maybe there's 20% of that 75 lots constructed. And so what you're suggesting is that with these 7 variances, your stormwater management is going to be coming close to capacity, and that there's a potential then for another perhaps 16 of lots concerned. So when the builder is building these lots, they have to fit the lot. They have to fit the capacity of the lot, taking into consideration a deck, who is going to monitor anybody who puts up a shed? And the answer to that is no one, because if it doesn't require a building permit, it's going to be built and installed on the property. So the planning department isn't going to go running out and say, no, you can't do that because of that. Is there a covenant on the properties that say you can't build anything further than what is already being sold to you? I have a concern that, I see you, Brianna, and I'll let you answer in a second. But I have a concern that you're using up everything that's there for these 7 models when you can actually downsize those homes. 1,600 square feet of a bungalow is a fair sized bungalow, considering that many that were built a few years back, the minimum was 1,100 square feet, and that included a garage. So I just have a concern that what's happening now, somewhere along the line, and whoever wants to build a deck is going to find that they're not going to be able to build a deck, and it's going to cause considerable concern for the developer, considerable concern for the township, considerable concern for the committee of adjustment in the future. And Brianna, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. I just had one comment. So one thing that the township is trying to do proactively on our end is when we review building permits that are nearing lot coverage, we will issue a maximum coverage warning letter as part of our review of that permit to be issued with the permit. We ask that the developer or the current property owner pass that on to any future property owners. So it is a heads up that you are nearing lot coverage and you may not be able to build things such as sheds or other accessory buildings of that nature. So that I know it is not going to guarantee that people don't just do what people are going to do, because we can't control that no matter how many rules or laws or things we throw at people. But it is one step that we are taking proactively to try to prevent that. Another brief comment is our building officials can work proactively to enforce the building code. As this is an active subdivision that's being developed, as things are put up, we do see, and we have seen here even at the committee level, where people have to come and get variances or whatever later on. So there has been proactive nature to some of building enforcement, especially in newer subdivisions when they can see a shed going up while they're reviewing a house on a neighboring property.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. As a former building official, yes, I did do that as well. But my concern here is that the developers is selling something that somebody can't do anything with. And I think it's incumbent somewhere that somebody takes responsibility, not the township, but the developer, to indicate that nothing further can be built. This is your property, this is your house, this is the size of the deck, that's it. And so I have a concern that by allowing these 7 applications to come to the close to the capacity of the storm drain, that there's going to be concern. And Mr. Planner, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, again, I would just like to further clarify and remind that if it wasn't clear previously, that the variances today, of course, are all for bungalows. And the reason why it was these 7 specifically and not any other lots is because our applicants at Huron Creek, I believe, have an idea of which models they would like on which lots and how many of each model. And hence, it's these 7 because these are the 7 that are proposed to be bungalow and requiring additional lot coverage. So when we say the stormwater pond volume could potentially accommodate 26 similar variances for 26 lots, and we're here today to request relief for 7. I guess one response I would have would be that the remaining capacity where we're requesting 7 and the pond could accommodate 26 potentially could be a buffer room that allows for, if a resident chooses to construct a shed, that would also provide some more buffering in that sense. And again, because these are the bungalows that Huron Creek has identified, we're very well aware ourselves and our applicants that the consequence for future models, we're building to what's permitted, and we're building to what the stormwater pond can accommodate.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion, Member Webster? I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. I still don't get the idea that the original purchase and built on lots are somehow going to be curtailed in terms of a minor variance going forward because of these 7 lots, because of the reach of these 7 lots. I don't want to approve something that has some kind of influence over previous purchasers. They are within their rights to apply for minor variances, and if they have to be declined because of stormwater management pond capabilities, we haven't done our job. Additionally, I know that the front 4 acres, which I think at the outset of the subdivision plan of subdivision was commercial, has not recently, but within a year or 2, has been rezoned for multiple family. I would assume that multiple family, multi-residential would include roofs and paving parking lots. And there's no, again, I suggest, or perhaps I can assume that the stormwater management plan was designed for either or, so that's fine. But we don't know about things like hardscaping. So the various people that live there that decide to not get a building permit, but to hardscape the back lawn, the backyard, the drainage ways between the houses, they decide to hardscape them. There's no building permit required. The water runs. I also know that in my lifetime, having been a taxpayer up there for many, many years, that was a swamp that grew pussy willows not that long ago. So I think we need to be very careful and very aware that stormwater management pond could, it needs to accommodate the most severest weather, and everybody has a right to a minor variance that exceeds 5%, since, as far as I know, we don't have a definition of a minor variance in the municipality. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee? All right, I have 2 resolutions here. Which one would you like me to read? Okay, I have to start with one, so I'll start with the first one and we can vote on that. I have a motion for application AO 422 through to A 1022.
Dennis,
Yes, go ahead.
I think Planner Belcourt wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brianna.
Thank you, Dennis. Could you, I believe you have to bring it to on the floor first and then read the motions.
I'm bringing it onto the floor for a vote.
I need a mover and a seconder first, and then we read the motion.
No, we put the seconder after the motions are read.
Okay,
Okay, either one or both will be read. So they can vote them down after their motion if they wish. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May 25th, 2022, correspondence received in the information presented at the hearing held on May 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter, hereby approve application AO4 2022 to A10 2022 as applied for. May have a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor. Moved by Cooney, seconded by Vanderbilt. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, sir, the motion has already been read. There's no more conversation. All those in favor? All those opposed? Henry, did you vote one way or the other?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so it's a tie vote. And as we don't have a fifth member this evening, the tie, I believe, Secretary Treasurer is lost. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Since you. Sorry, because it's a tie, you were asking if it's lost? Yeah, that is correct.
You're
Sorry,
muted,
you're
Dennis.
Yeah.
You're muted, Dennis.
Yep, that's correct. So the vote is lost. So procedure-wise, then I can read the second motion and see if that gets approved, I believe. And we go from there, correct? Sound like it to you? Okay, so I'm going to read the second motion. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration of the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May 25th.
You're muted again, Dennis.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that jumped in there. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May the 25th, 2022, the correspondence received and the information presented at the hearing held on May the 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter hereby deny application AO4 2022 to A10 2022. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Put it on the floor. Moved by Webster, seconded by Vanderwielen. All those in favor? All those opposed? So again, we have a lost motion here. So I am going to have to defer the application until the next available meeting so that we have the opportunity for a vote to be broken. Secretary Treasurer, does that fall within the context that you understand?
Yes, sorry, this is the first time that this has happened for me before, but yeah. So
Okay,
I think the motion
Well-
is lost and is just automatically denied, but if you guys choose to defer it, you can vote on that message to defer it and then it can.
and that's what we'll have to do then. Okay, I have a motion that the applications A04 2022 to A10 2022 are hereby deferred until next available Committee of the Adjustment meeting. Moved by Lauren Cooney, seconded by Henry Vanderwill, all in favor? Opposed? 3 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay, so the application is deferred until the next available meeting as it was due to a tie vote. Thank you, gentlemen, for your opportunity this evening, and we'll bring it back when we can. Thank you. And if there's any additional information that you can provide prior to the next meeting, please refer it to Planner Belcourt so that she will be able to update her report. Thank you. Ask the Secretary Treasurer, hang on a second. Yes, Henry, what would you like?
Yeah, I just wanted, through you, Chair Gannon, I just want to reiterate that what you had said, that if they can provide more information and be a little bit more clear for the next meeting will be helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have to keep moving on here. We have lots on the agenda here. Ask the Secretary Treasurer, please introduce the next application, item number 4.2 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Item 4.2 on the agenda is minor variance application A1722, submitted by T and D LaPrere, owners of lands known municipally as 2795 County Road 92. The purpose and effect of the application is to permit the construction of an 111.48 square meter, 1,200 square foot detached accessory building with an additional residential unit ARU. The subject property contains an existing primary dwelling with a gross floor area of 246.19 square meters, along with an existing detached shop totaling 84.77 square meters. The proposed ARU unit will exceed the maximum area permitted for all detached accessory buildings and the maximum ARU size to primary dwelling ratio. The applicants are requesting a maximum total detached accessory building area of 196.25 square meters, whereas section 33.3.14.1H permits a maximum of 115 square meters and a maximum additional residential unit size ratio of 45.28%, whereas section 3.48.3A permits a maximum of 40% of the total gross floor area of the primary dwelling.
Thank you. Has there been any additional comments or correspondence that have been received?
Yes, so the Director of Finance provided comments in an email dated May 17th, 2022, stating as per bylaw 2021-117, development charges shall be exempt if the total gross floor area of the additional residential unit does not exceed the total gross floor area of the existing dwelling unit. And the Manager of Roads and Fleet, the Chief Building Official, and the Director of Fire and Emergency Services all stated no concerns.
Thank you. May I please have the applicants introduce themselves and advise us what it is that you're looking for?
I think we're on. Hello.
Go ahead. You're good.
Hi, Teresa, my wife Teresa, and myself, Derek. We like to get permission and approval to build an additional bungalow on our 3-acre lot. We understand with the detached shop, it exceeded the square footage allowance, and as such, we submitted the minor variance request.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public registered to make any oral submissions this evening?
There are no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission.
Thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions or comments or concerns? Member Vanderwill, go ahead.
Through you, Chair Gannon, just driveway. So it's going to be a shared driveway then?
Correct.
That's
It'll be
correct.
a shared driveway.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I will read a motion. I have a motion for A17-2022. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, the characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May 25th, 2022. Correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter, hereby approve application A17-2022 as applied for. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Webster, seconded by Cooney. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. There's a 20-day appeal period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You're welcome. When the Secretary Treasurer is ready, she can move ahead with number 4.3 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Item 4.3 on the agenda is minor variance application A2022 submitted by Justin Sherry Design Studio on behalf of K Wire, owner of lands known municipally as 26 Mill Street East. The purpose and effect of the application is to permit the construction of an 82.61 square meter detached accessory building garage with a storage loft in the rear yard. Proposed accessory garage will result in the exceedance of the maximum total area and height requirements. The applicant is proposing a maximum total ground floor area of all accessory buildings and structures, proposed garage and existing shed of 91.9 square meters, whereas section 4.3.12 permits a maximum of 65 square meters, and a maximum height of 6 meters, whereas section 3.7.5b permits a maximum height of 4.5 meters, or the height of the dwelling, whichever is the lesser.
Thank you. Has there been any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, comments were received. The manager of roads and fleet, the chief building official, and the director of fire and emergency services all stated no concerns. The director of finance stated development charges are not applicable.
Thank you. May I please have the applicant introduce themselves and advise us what it is that you're looking for?
Good evening, committee. I'm Justin Sherry, representing the owner at 26 Mill Street. We're looking for relief of the bylaw for the height requirement of 4.5 meters for 6 meters and an overall gross floor area for all accessory structures of 92 square meters. The intent with the design for the height requirements was to keep the eaves low, use a mansard roof, and reduce that height visually from the streetscape, as well as setting back the accessory unit back halfway through the lot. And it's a fairly large lot, 265 feet. With that being said, with the coverage as well, we believe that it's minor due to the fact that the overall coverage for all accessory structures are less than 4% of the total area of the whole lot. So I just wanted to reiterate from planning report that it seems to be minor in nature.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public registered to make any oral submissions this evening?
Thank you. There are no members of the public who have registered to make oral submission.
Thank you. Committee, any questions, comments, concerns? All right, I will move ahead with resolution A20/2022. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May 25th, 2022, correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May 25th, 2022, and the discussions on the matter, hereby approve application A20/22 as applied for. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Vanderbilt and seconded by Webster. All in favor? The motion is carried. There's a 20-day appeal period.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. And when the Secretary Treasurer is ready, you can go ahead with item 4.4.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Item 4.4 on the agenda is minor variance application A2122 submitted by C. Massacre and R. Halt, owners of lands known municipally as 16 Simcoe Street. The purpose and effect of the application is to permit the construction of a replacement covered porch. Proposed covered porch is proposed to be 13.77 square meters in area and be set back 3.76 meters from the front lot line. The porch will result in the exceedance of the maximum total lot coverage and encroachment into the required front yard permitted. The applicants are proposing a maximum lot coverage of 36.8%, whereas section 4.3.8.a permits a maximum 35% and a maximum encroachment is required front yard of 2.24 meters for a 13.77 square meter porch, whereas section 3.21.4 permits a maximum front yard encroachment of 1.2 meters and an area of 1.5 square meters within the encroachment area for a porch.
Thank you. Is there any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, the manager of roads and fleet, the chief building official, the director of fire and emergency services, and the director of finance all stated that they have no concerns with the application.
Thank you. Can I have the applicant introduce themselves and advise us what it is that you're looking to do?
Good evening, everybody. It's Chris Messiker. Thanks so much for hearing our request. Our family is planning an addition to our current home to accommodate our growing rambunctious bunch. And as part of the addition, we are looking to construct a new front porch. There is a smaller front porch currently on the house, so that would be taken down with a new covered front porch. And yes, it is exceeding the maximum lot coverage by 1.8%, as well as the setback at the front. So we're hoping for that relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public registered to make any oral submissions?
There are no members of the public who have registered to make oral submission.
Thank you. Committee, any questions, comments, concerns? I see none. I have a motion then for A2122. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, official plan of the Township of Springwater, the characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings, as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May the 25th, 2022, the correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter hereby approve application A21/22 as applied for. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Cooney, seconded by Webster. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There's a 20-day appeal period, Mr. Messiker.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Application number 5, when the Secretary Treasurer is ready to go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Item 4.5 on the agenda is minor variance application A2322, submitted by J. Owen, owner of lands known municipally as 49 Davenport. The purpose and effect of the application is to facilitate the continued construction of a 113 square meter detached accessory building garage. The proposed accessory building will exceed the maximum permitted height. The applicant is proposing a height of 5.25 meters, whereas section 3.7.5B permits a maximum height of 4.5 meters, or the height of the dwelling, whichever is the lesser.
Thank you. Has there been any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, the manager of roads and fleet, the chief building official, the director of fire and emergency services, all have stated that they have no concerns with the application. The director of finance stated development charges are not applicable.
Thank you. May the applicant introduce themselves and explain what you're looking for.
Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Owen. As previously stated, I'm looking to have my detached shop be built 0.75 meters taller than originally planned. This is my first time building, and there was some confusion with the lumber being delivered and the framers, and it got built with 12-foot lumber instead of 10-foot lumber, and I'm just looking to apply for this to be corrected and to continue being built.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who have been registered to make any oral submissions this evening?
Thank you. There are no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission.
Thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Two noes. I'm assuming the third no is going like this. Thank you. I have a motion for A 2322 that the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, the characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May the 25th, 2022. Correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May the 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter hereby approve application A23/22 as applied for. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Cooney, seconded by Vanderwellen. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day appeal period, Mr. Owen.
Thank you very much. Oh, it looks like Webster.
Hang on a second. Mr. Webster wants to make a comment here.
Yes, sir. Well, I think you're muted, maybe.
No, you're good. You're Rick. We can't hear you on your phone for some reason. You're not muted.
I used to be a building supply owner, so I don't know much about this speaker thing. As a former owner of a building supply outlet, I would hope that Mr. Rowland paid for 10-foot material and not 12-foot material.
I absolutely did pay for the 12-foot in the end. It was a with all this building material shortages, I took what I could get, and there was some miscommunication on my end.
No problem.
Pleased to get it one way or the other. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Application number 6, when the Secretary Treasurer is available and ready.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Application or item 4.6 rather on the agenda is consent applications BO422 and BO522 submitted by R. Palmer from the Planning Partnership on behalf of the estate of Marie Louise Frankham for the lands known municipally as 124 Doran Road. The purpose of application BO422 is to obtain a boundary adjustment consent to convey a parcel of land representing an area of approximately 0.248 hectares to the abutting parcel municipally known as 114 Doran Road for driveway access purposes. The applicant proposes to retain approximately 20.070 hectares of land prior to the severance. The purpose of application BO522 is to obtain approval to sever a residential parcel of land containing an existing dwelling and consisting of approximately 1.563 hectares of lot area. The applicant proposes to retain the remnant parcel consisting of approximately 18.507 hectares of lot area for future residential purposes.
Thank you. Has there been any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, the manager of roads and fleet, the chief building official, the director of fire and emergency services, and the director of finance all stated no concerns. The drainage superintendent stated that the subject property is not assessed into any known municipal drain, and therefore no condition is required to satisfy the Drainage Act. Written comments were received from Mark Morfitt of 2405 Gill Road on May 24th, 2022, stating concerns related to the neighboring Pioneer Cemetery, deer migration, and the potential interruption of natural drainage.
Thank you. Director Spagnol, I understand you wish to make a comment at this time.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to make a point of clarification. I apologize for this. It was brought to my attention that there were some discrepancies between the frontages that are identified on page 3 of the planning report, which goes through the frontages and lot areas of the proposed boundary adjustment, the severance, and the retained lands. I have reviewed the presentation that's been provided by Planning Partnership, which the committee will have presented to them this evening. And I can confirm that those are the proper frontage measurements associated with the application. And that as far as those frontage specifications and area specifications, that they do not alter or change the opinion contained within my report. What I propose to do with the committee's indulgence is have the presentation provided by Mr. Palmer, and then definitely available to answer any questions later as to how we could proceed.
Thank you. May I have the applicant introduce themselves, please, and explain what it is that is being proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? Great.
Go ahead. Yep, you're fine.
Wonderful. I'm here tonight with Arthur Grabowski, who is from my firm, who's done a tremendous amount of work on this file, and he is going to share the presentation with you that I will deliver. I'm also here with Mr. Stan Kirsch, who is here as the representative of the Frankham family tonight. So hopefully we can get the presentation fired up.
Mr. Grabowski.
Good evening. I'm just going to share my screen now. Just confirm that everybody can see my screen.
Lovely.
You're good. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the next slide. Thank you. This is just some overview data on the existing subject lands. As you can see, it is located at the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Gill Road and Doran Road in Midhurst. It's a significant piece of land, over 20 hectares in size, with about 557 meters of frontage along Doran Road and a little under 90.5 meters on Gill Road. These lands are part of Neighborhood 2 in the Midhurst Secondary Plan, and they have been owned by the Frankham family since the early 1900s. There are also, concurrent to these applications tonight, ongoing applications for the development of the bulk of the property. And those applications are subject to a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan applications. Those applications for development were submitted on December 16th of 2020. They implement the secondary plan and are ongoing in terms of both process and all the technical work that is required to support ongoing future development. Certainly, the adjustment applications that we're here to talk about tonight are a separate process, and there's a couple of reasons for each, which I will provide shortly, but they are in fact separated from the zoning bylaw amendment and the draft plan applications. Next slide, please. So what we're looking for tonight is, again, the outline in red is the subject lands. The purple is a new lot that we are looking for that incorporates an existing home, and that is identified as 124 Doran Road. In addition to that, with respect to 114 Doran Road, not part of the subject property, but encompassed within it, we're looking to do a boundary adjustment to provide 114 Doran Road with additional lands to accommodate their existing driveway access off of Doran Road. The bulk of the property would remain as a vacant parcel, subject to those zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision applications. Next slide. The photo on the left is the existing driveway access from Doran Road to 114 Doran Road, the property that we are looking for the boundary expansion for. And the photo on the right is the existing bungalow at 124 Doran Road, the home that we are trying to achieve a lot around. Next slide. So as I've said, it's really two things we're asking for tonight. The first is the consent to sever, and that is B05/22. And that would sever a house lot that would allow for the transfer of the family home to Miss Sylvia Marie Frankham, the deceased daughter, and that is in accordance with the deceased will and minutes of settlement. Again, the retained lands, the largest parcel, would be available for sale to a third party to hopefully facilitate appropriate development. The second application that we're looking for is for a boundary adjustment, that's B04/22, and that's proposed to transfer the existing driveway to Paul Frankham, at 114 Doran Road, so that he has ownership of the driveway that goes to his property. Next slide. Just to be very clear, the severed parcel A, which is surrounded in green, incorporates the existing family home, and that would be retained by Sylvia Frankham. Next slide. The area identified in orange is the boundary adjustment for the benefit of Paul Frankham and his driveway access. Next slide. Just in a summary of the properties that are created here. Again, the severed parcel A is incorporating the family home. It is about 1.56 hectares in size with 108.2 meters on Doran Road. The boundary adjustment for the driveway is 0.248 hectares, and that creates an additional 99.4 meters of frontage on Doran Road. And then the lands to be retained down at the bottom would be just over 18.5 hectares in size, and that has frontage on both Gill Road and Doran Road. Next slide, please. In conclusion, we'd like to start with the statement that we absolutely support the recommendations of staff and thought the report prepared by Director Spagnol was excellent and comprehensive. And just to conclude, the consent to sever and the boundary adjustment are in our mind really kind of technical in nature, allowing for access and for the transfer of ownership in accordance with the deceased will and minutes of settlement. The lot areas exceed the minimum lot areas and frontage requirements as set out in the zoning bylaw. We satisfy the applicable criteria under the Planning Act. We conform to the official plan and to the zoning bylaw. In closing, we believe that these applications, these two applications, are reasonable and appropriate and are representative of good planning in this case. I would like to address very briefly the comments that were received at 4:57 this afternoon from Mr. Morfett. And while we appreciate his concerns, they really are concerns related to the potential development of the property. Certainly, studies will need to be carried out prior to any development taking place that will deal with the archaeological elements of the Pioneer Cemetery, the environmental and natural heritage elements of the deer migration concern, and with respect to drainage, absolutely any development will require a comprehensive stormwater management strategy dealing with any urban forms of development that could occur on the properties. And with that, I'm here with Arthur and with Stan and with Brent to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for your indulgence this evening.
Thank you, sir. Are there any members of the public registered to make any oral submissions this evening?
Thank you. There are no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission.
Thank you. Can I ask you, sir, to stop screen sharing? Thank you. Easier for me to see the members of the committee. Members of the committee, any questions, concerns? We'll go ahead with Mr. Webster, being he's the only one.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. As a former member of council, having sat through 4 years of development of the Miller Secondary Plan, I would also like to assure the committee and Mr. Palmer that these concerns regarding wildlife migration, drainage, and all of the other, pioneer cemeteries and so on. These things are all part of the Bitter secondary plan, long ago approved. And I was really struck by the notion that the letter received was going to be sent to the Bitters Ratepayers Association. This was approved with all the conditions thereof long ago and far away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Director Spagnuolo, is there anything you wish to add, or should we go ahead with the motion with the 8 conditions that you added to it?
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything to add other than I concur with Mr. Palmer's comments about those considerations will be dealt with through the subdivision process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, then I have a motion for application B0422 and B0522. That the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 53 of the Planning Act, official plan of the Township of Springwater, the characteristics of the subject land and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the subject application dated May the 25th, 2022, the correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May the 25th, 2022, and the division on the matter hereby approve of the applications as applied for, subject to the following conditions. B04/2022, that the applicant meet all requirements, financial or otherwise, the municipality, that the applicant provide 2 copies of the registered survey of the conveyed lands prepared by an Ontario land surveyor, that the owner applicant satisfy and be responsible for all costs to satisfy Section 65 of the Drainage Act 1990 if applicable, and number 4, that the conveyed lands be merged with the benefiting lands known municipally as 114 Doran Road. And with B05/2022, that the applicant meet all requirements, financial or otherwise, of the municipality, including posting of securities. Number 2, that the applicant provide 2 copies of the registered survey of the severed or retained lots prepared by an Ontario land surveyor. Number 3, that the owner applicant satisfy and be responsible for all costs to satisfy Section 65 of the Drainage Act 1990 if applicable. And number 4, that the applicant be required to pay the township a parkland dedication fee for the severed industrial lot in line with the township parkland dedication policy. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Vanderwill and seconded by Webster. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
And when the second treasurer is ready, we'll go with number 7.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Gannon. Item 4.7 on the agenda is consent application B0622, submitted by M. Furlong, owner of lands known municipally as 1748 and 1804 Old Second North. The purpose and effect of the application is to facilitate the continued construction of a 113 square meter detached accessory building. Purpose of the application is to obtain approval to resever a farm parcel measuring approximately 81.4 hectares that formed due to an inadvertent merge of 2 abutting agricultural lots. The result of the severance would be to recreate 2 agricultural lots. The applicant proposes to retain the existing dwelling, agricultural structures, and approximately 42.7 hectares of lot area with frontage on Old Second North and Floss Road 4 East. The applicant proposes to sever 38.7 hectares comprised of farmland and contain 2 existing solar panels with frontage on Old Second North.
Thank you. Has there been any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, the manager of roads and fleet, the chief building official, the director of fire and emergency services, and the director of finance all stated no concerns with the application. The drainage superintendent stated that the subject property is not assessed into any known municipal drain and therefore no condition is required to satisfy the Drainage Act.
Thank you. Ask the applicant to introduce themselves and explain what it is that you're looking for. Is the applicant online this evening, moderator?
He is, yes. Brian, I don't know if you can hear us. I'm just trying to prompt you here to unmute. So if you're looking to unmute, it's *6.
Mr. Hancock, do you wish to say anything? You find that follow the moderator's instructions, *6, I believe is what you said. Planner Belcourt, did you wish to comment on this or provide any information?
Sure, I could provide a brief overview based on my planning report. So Mr. Hancock is the agent working on behalf of the property owner, Mr. Mark Furlong. He owned 2 abutting farm parcels that merged on title. He's looking to resever them, both exceeding the 35 hectares required for agricultural lots in the Springwater zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
I am
Committee
available
members,
for
do you have
any
any
further questions, should the committee have them.
committee members, do you have any questions for Planner Belcourt that she could perhaps answer? Go ahead, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. I gather that they were 2 pieces that merged. Was there a farm severance on one of them?
My understanding is that was a historic farm severance. It wasn't something recently done through a surplus farm dwelling consent or something of that nature. It would be something very old, perhaps a retiring lot, something of that nature, but it does appear on the mapping that there was a house previously severed at some point in time in history.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Oh, thank you, Planner Belcourt. Through you, Dennis, Chair Gannon. So there was an aged farm severance that we don't know about, but how did the 2 lots, how did the 200-acre pieces, if you will, merge?
Thank you, Member Webster, through Chair Gannon to yourself. My understanding is that when 2 parcels are owned under common ownership, so the exact same wording on the legal description, they can merge on title after a given period of time.
Yeah, and that's historically speaking.
Yes, I think that's
That
across the board.
Yeah, that used to be the legislation.
That is correct. It is still my understanding, with the exception of lots created by way of plan of subdivision or more current severances, but historic severances did not have that same impact, to my understanding.
Okay, so we're being asked to reverse a merger that occurred because of legislation at the time.
Sorry, through you, Chair Gannon, to Member Webster. The verge was inadvertent because the property owner had common ownership of both parcels. They merged on title, not with him triggering it or not through any Planning Act application. He is now looking to reestablish those 2 properties he once had because that merge happened without him knowing, I guess.
Well, yeah. You know, you can be speeding because you didn't see the sign, but I've had the same situation occur in my life where 2 pieces of property that I owned, and I was instructed by my lawyer, must hold these in 2 different names, or they will merge.
Thank you. And yes, I can appreciate that as well. I do understand that, unfortunately, that was not the case in this instance. I will note that the severance applied for today are under today's policies and do comply with the planning regulations of today. And they were weighed on that merit, not simply just because they merged, but under today's same scrutiny that any new application, regardless of the merge, would have to go through.
Through you, Chair Gannon, then, so if somebody had 200 acres today, they could sever it into two 100-acre pieces?
That is correct, yes. As long as they met the minimum requirements of the township official plan and county official plan, they could sever for agricultural purposes.
Okay, so our motion then will have to read that these severances are conditional upon them remaining in agriculture.
There are no proposed changes to the proposed use of either lot through this application.
Thank you, Planner Belcourt.
Okay, Mr. Hancock, were you able to get on? Don't see any movement on his phone line. I have a motion then. Is there any, I'm sorry, Member Cooney or Vanderwill, any questions?
No.
Thank you. I have a motion for B06/22 that the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 55 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, the characteristics of the subject land and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the subject application dated May the 25th, 2022, correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May the 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter hereby approve of the application as applied for, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the applicant satisfy all requirements, financial or otherwise, of the municipality. Number two, that the applicant provide 2 copies of the registered survey of the severed lands prepared by an Ontario land surveyor. Number 3, that the owner applicant satisfy and be responsible for all costs to satisfy Section 65 of the Drainage Act 1990, if applicable. And number 4, that the applicant pay any required parkland dedication fees in accordance with the township policy, if applicable. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Vanderwill and seconded by Cooney. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Planner Belcourt, for your assistance. And number 8 on the agenda. Go ahead, Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. Last but not least, item 4.8 on the agenda is consent applications B0722 and B0822 submitted by Celeste Phillips Planning Incorporated on behalf of 1061031 Ontario Limited, Western Mechanical, owner of lands known municipally as 2145 Floss Road 4 East. The purpose of the application is to obtain approval to sever and create 2 new lots and 1 retained lot from an existing industrial parcel measuring approximately 43.84 hectares with approximately 1,045 meters of frontage along Floss Road 4 East. The proposed severed and retained parcels would have lot areas and frontages as follows. The retained, a lot area of 6.87 hectares and a lot frontage of 235 meters for a proposed use of future industrial uses. A severed lot of 13.96 hectares, 265.0 meters of lot frontage for a proposed use of bush lot, and a severed lot area of 23.26 hectares, 546.0 meters of lot frontage for future industrial uses.
Thank you. Has there been any additional correspondence or comments that have been received?
Yes, the manager of roads and fleet, the director of fire and emergency services, and the director of finance all stated no concerns with the applications. The drainage superintendent stated that the subject property is not assessed into any known municipal drain, and therefore no condition is required to satisfy the Drainage Act. And the chief building official stated that the building department requests that well, septic, and water storage for firefighting be shown to ensure adequate room and setbacks can be provided for these items if municipal water is not available as part of a condition to sever.
I have the applicant introduce herself and explain what is going on.
Thank you, Chair Gannon and members of committee. My name is Celeste Phillips. I'm a land use planning consultant. I represent the numbered company that owns this property. They operate as Western Mechanical. The lands are zoned for the proposed use through zoning bylaw 5,324, which is approved in 2020. And so for some time now, it's been envisioned that this land would be divided into 3 parcels. And that's actually what the request is this evening. The zoning is in place. There's no variances being requested. And so there are 3 lots, and I'll just share my screen because I know there's a small drawing in your staff report, but I'll just share my screen if you can see it here. So the western property, the westernly located property is a bush lot consisting of about 34.5 acres. There's the center lot, which is about 17 acres. And then the easterly lot is 57.5 acres. The easterly lot is currently being used by Western Mechanical and will continue to be used by Western Mechanical. The westerly lot is zoned environmental protection and will remain as a bush lot until at some point in the future it may be harvested, but for now there's no plans for that lot because it's not zoned for development. And then the center lot is the lot that will be sold. There is an interested buyer for an industrial manufacturing operation here in Hillsdale. And so that is the lot that is of utmost importance to sever and to sell. The designation of these lands are business park. You have before you a staff report that's supportive of the application. And I support what is in that staff report this evening. The one question I did have, though, Chair Gannon, is I heard some comments just now that I haven't seen with respect to well and septic, and I wanted to better understand those comments. Typically, the location of well and septic is identified at the site plan stage, not before the deeds are stamped. So I am a little concerned if that is a condition that's being contemplated this evening.
Thank you. And the answer to that is no, it's not.
Thank you.
That's part of the planning as you suggested. And when buildings are being proposed, it will be required then.
Thank you, but I had, maybe I misheard. I thought that the comment said that the well and septic had to be identified before the severance could be approved.
That was a suggestion by the chief building official, but it is not part of our motion that we have before us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will remove this from my screen unless you have specific questions.
I'll ask you to take down your screen. Thank you. Are there any members of the public registered to make any oral submissions this evening?
There are no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission.
Thank you. Members of the committee, any questions? Member Webster, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. I'm just going to review my to Celeste just to make sure that I don't really understand that either. I don't know why a building official would make a comment like that when it's not part of the application. I don't see it here either. So I just would like to make a note that the city has considered that, and it's not part of our severance. So I concur. I don't quite understand it, and I don't know why it was even part of the topic, but nonetheless.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. And what I can say to you is that I have read the staff report, and my client is agreeable to the 4 conditions that are laid out in the recommendation on page 2. But if there are new conditions that are being contemplated, I need to better understand those before they're imposed. Thank you.
I'm going to go to the secretary. The motion I have here is the required motions for this evening.
So the motion that you have before you with the list of conditions, that list of conditions was from the planner's report. Those comments from our chief building official came in after that report was published. Whether or not that condition is added would be up to the committee.
Okay, I see no conditions on the report here. That's, or on my motions here. There are no conditions, correct? At this
There,
point?
yes, there should be.
Okay, then the agenda that you gave me here doesn't have any,
Are you referring to your
Conditions.
script?
there's nothing on my script, so you'll have
Okay.
to,
I can put the list of conditions on the screen for you.
okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll read my script, and then the secretary treasurer will add in the conditions. All right.
Okay.
I have a motion then for A23/2022 that the Committee of Adjustment, having given consideration to the applicable provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, the official plan of the Township of Springwater, the characteristics of the land in question and its surroundings as addressed in the planning report on the application dated May 25th, 2022, correspondence received and information presented at the hearing held on May the 25th, 2022, and the discussion on the matter hereby approve application A23/22 as applied for subject to following
B07.
conditions. The applicant meet all requirements, financial otherwise, of the municipality, including posting of securities. The applicant provide 2 copies of the registered survey of the severed and retained lots prepared by an Ontario land surveyor. That the owner applicant satisfy and be responsible for all costs to satisfy Section 65 of the Drainage Act 1990 if applicable. And number 4, that the applicant be required to pay to the township a parkland dedication fee for the severed industrial lot in line with the township parkland dedication policy. You understand that?
I do, Mr. Chair, although I'm just hesitating about number 1 now that says the applicant meet all requirements, financial or otherwise, and I'm hopeful that otherwise does not mean well and septic approval. So as long as we have that understanding, I'm absolutely fine with the 4 conditions.
Thank you. We didn't put it in as a condition, so I understand what he's suggesting. That's for future planning for fire services.
Right.
But you're not there yet. So
No, site plan. Yeah, site plan will look after that.
Yeah. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Cooney, seconded by Vanderwellen. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry we had to keep you so long tonight.
No problem. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, moving on to other business. 5.1, the OACA conference, which is members would be interested in attending September 28th to 30th in Peterborough. Is there any interest from the committee members? I am away on vacation that week. And so is probably Lauren. Henry will be farming and Rick will be doing something important. So Danielle, you get to have fun all by yourself and not with us.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Oh, that's fair? Suddenly that's fair?
I'll share any information that I find valuable for
Just
the.
remember, you have to, all the goodies that you have to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more copies of.
I'll see what I can do. Yeah.
All right. I have, go ahead, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chair Gannon. I'd just like to make a comment that while I recognize that this was a very voluminous meeting and there was lots of documents, it is not really easy to follow the chain of emails that come back and forth. And so the last one that came in was May the 10th, I think, and it had to do with Huron Creek, or wherever he calls it there at the west side. And if you didn't go deep into that, you didn't get to the last communication. So what we had was Tatum with their report. We had a reply from Ainley saying no, no, no. And then we had a response from Tatum saying yes, yes, yes. And then there was another, and it was, if there was an opportunity to not get all of that communication. So while I recognize that what we would have got would maybe been, that thick of a document, maybe in the more complex ones, maybe we should get them. I don't know how to avoid it, but, and then I had a computer issue, which didn't help me any, but, it's when they're getting tagged in and that there's a response and then a response and then a response and then a response. And if you don't stay with it or go back to it, since they seem to come, like they're one day and then the next day and the next day and the next day. And if you, we're not, this isn't our job, so we're volunteering here. So I get that the paper thing is a problem, but it's not easy to follow without it. Just my
I
comment.
understand what you're saying, because sometimes when you get multiple emails, if you don't go to the first one or the last one, you lose context. So that's appreciate that. Mr. Van der Weylen, sir.
Through you, Chair Gannon, I don't see how the paper thing is going to help any, because if we got the papers last week and then these additional things come up, it's still all coming through email. So personally, so I was going to bring this up tonight, thinking about it today so I brought my iPad with me on these visitations that I did today. And to me, that worked good. Except tonight I was going to put the agenda things all on my iPad, and I was going to do the meeting on my laptop, but for whatever reason my laptop didn't cooperate. But it's just I mean, and so this, like, I don't think, well, as long as I've been on the committee, we haven't had 8. But can you not shorten down the paper load anyways? Like, just like give us the basics, or else, I mean, and this has been talked about before, is like, is it not feasible that the township can provide us with an iPad so that everything, and the township owns them, like, so if my term is done, I hand it in, there's nothing else on it. But then, but everything then is on the iPad, and then you, at our meeting as tonight, it would be there. So, yeah, I thought I had it all figured out. My agenda was gonna be on my iPad, and I was going to follow the meeting on my laptop, but as I said, my laptop failed me. But because the same thing is on for the one that was in Midhurst, is that there was a response at 4:57 tonight. Well, that wouldn't have come up in the paper, on a paper thing either. So anyways, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Just one comment that I will make, or 2 comments at first I'll make. One is that you can't Zoom both. You can only have one piece of equipment Zooming. So if you were to try with your laptop and your iPad, it wouldn't work. You would get echo and causes an issue. The other is that earlier last year, or earlier in our term, we did have some conversations about getting agendas out earlier, and there was comment made by council that should you require a computer laptop, they would provide it. But the discussion about iPads was never made, and I see Director Spagno's on, so I'll let him do his talking now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the first thing is, yes, if committee members are in need of any equipment or anything like that to make the job easier, then definitely be in contact with Secretary Treasurer Behringer, and then we can try to set something up through IT to try to make your lives easier. The other aspect related to written correspondence and emails, I think we all struggle with the email overload that that seems to be the way of today. And what we found, even from staff's perspective, is getting multiple emails after emails after emails. They tend to get confusing even to find the context of an application and where things were and what happened. What I think staff can do is take a look at the correspondence and try to decipher where the relevant pieces are. So for example, with the Huron Creek file tonight, there was a couple of responses that came in from the engineer regarding stormwater management. And at the end of the day, the comment coming in from Ainley's summarizes what the position of the municipality is and what the municipality would be willing to accept from a stormwater management perspective and from a development perspective. That way there we're limiting that correspondence down to maybe 3 pieces versus an entire email chain. So I mean, that's one approach that staff can take as opposed to overloading the committee with emails. Of course, it's a fine line because sometimes you get into situations where committee members might want to see all of the information. But from my experience in dealing with these applications, it's typically a final letter of either acceptance of engineering or denial of the engineering solution. And usually that is the correspondence that's needed, as that information. So staff are in the committee's hands as to how the committee wants to proceed, but there's a couple of ways to approach it. Really open to the suggestions, but my recommendation would be that staff take a fine look at the correspondence that we're submitting as part of these agendas and really focus on the more current correspondence for the committee agendas where you can actually pick up on the context and the final position of the parties that have an application before the committee.
Thank you. I would just, before I let Mr. Webster and Mr. Van der Willen speak, I would note that Secretary Treasurer Behringer and I did have a conversation about this agenda. And she did indicate that there was going to be a pure later van just by itself for delivering agendas, and we trimmed it down to just the basics that I thought that the committee needed. We didn't need the application information. We needed a staff report. We needed the rationale behind what they needed, what the party wanted, and any other pertinent documents. And I think Danielle did an excellent job of trimming it down from 570 pages to about 60, maybe, whatever the case is. And it was sufficient for me. Mr. Webster, you had to comment?
Thank you, Dennis. I agree with you and with Director Spagnol that in matter of fact, it makes me kind of, I don't know about sad, but I don't think the committee needs to be in a position where we have to make some kind of, we have to pass something, and here we have 2 engineering firms, one that the taxpayer pays for and one that the developer pays for, and they clearly are not on the same page at the outset, and somehow or other an engineer wins and another one doesn't win, and they shake hands and off they go, and the municipality gets the bill for peer review, and a peer review based on what? Because I'm not an engineer, so I don't understand all the rhetoric, but it makes me question things that I really don't want to question as a taxpayer. And as a member of this committee, quite frankly, I find it very sad that the taxpayers are faced with this kind of nonsense that goes on between these people, and either the documents that were submitted by Tatum were accurate and correct, and either our engineer said yes or no, and that didn't happen, and I'm afraid that it happens more often than it should. So I would prefer to just have, the final, our employed engineers give us the final, without all the other stuff that just is rather unsavory, to be quite honest with you. It just runs up the bill. It's like It's like the old saying, how copper wire was invented. Two people fighting over a penny. And in this case, they're fighting over tens of thousands of dollars in engineering fees. And, you know, the taxpayer's paying for one side, the developer's paying for the other side. I don't need to know that. I know it, I embrace it, I understand it, but not anymore. And I don't think the public needs to know it either. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry, did you want to say something first before Director Spagnol?
Yeah, just I wanted to question you, Chair Gannon. So I was going to, on my iPad, just go to the agenda, which was given to us on May 13th, and that's all I was going to look at. And then I was going to do the meeting on my laptop. So could that not work?
Yeah, no, that works. I have the agenda on one iPad. I have I have my script on another iPad, and my computer is doing the Zoom, but you can't use Zoom for more than one device.
Yep. Okay, I understand that. So, yep. So, I mean, if this happens again, I mean, I can handle it through iPad and laptop then, I think. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Director Spagnol, did you wish to say anything further?
Thank you, Chair Gannon. So I think just points of clarification. I agree with committee member Webster about the amount of information that's needed when we have, you know, engineers that are going back and forth on very technical aspects of stormwater management and things of that nature. The one thing I think about, you know, when we're talking about Ainley Group, they are peer reviewers for the township, and they're representing the township interest to protect the township. So they're looking at it through the lens of the municipality and any exposures that might be there and any potential impacts to residents. The one point of clarification is that when we're dealing with applications under the Planning Act and those peer reviews need to be completed, those are covered and the costs are covered by the developer. The only time that the municipality absorbs the costs for those consulting and engineering fees is if we run into a situation where there's appeals where the municipality is fighting a case with the tribunal. But during the application process, there are cost acknowledgement agreements that are essentially signed at the application stage, which requires the developer to pay for township's peer reviews in the engineering. So it's just one point of clarification. But as far as the amount of correspondence back and forth, you know, engineers talk solutions and ways of doing things. There's always a solution. It's just a matter of whether or not it's a solution that's in the best interest of the municipality. And that's usually what Ainley's is trying to work through to try to decipher and provide input on.
That's great news, Director Spagnol, and I would say, I would follow up on that by saying that that's something the public probably should know, and the Springwater Link could probably contain, or the mayor's report probably could contain some verbiage on that, so the public knows that that's how it works and that they're not being built for that kind of stuff. Because that's, I kind of knew that, but I guess I forgot, because I forget things. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Anything else from any other members? Mr. Cooney, go ahead.
Yeah, through Chair Gannon to yourself, Mr. Spagnol. With regards to Ainley's, they're retained by the township, and they're at the direction of the Director of Public Works, are they not?
Mr. Chair, through you to Committee Member Cooney. Yes, they are for various aspects of development. So Ainley's conducts a number of, or provides a number of different services. They will provide site inspection services. They'll receive development drawings related to subdivisions and accept them from an engineering standpoint. From the standpoint of Planning Act applications, it's kind of a coordinated effort between planning and Public Works. So Public Works definitely is brought into the loop on the comments that Ainley's comes forward with. just because it's the township that, you know, when we're talking about stormwater management facilities and what's being built in those facilities and what the purposes of capacities and all that, there needs to be some township input on that. So we definitely consult and talk to Public Works, but it's not under the specific, or their services are not under the specific direction of Public Works. They more or less provide a service for Planning Act applications, and they provide a service for Public Works when needed for various things related to subdivision development and ongoing inspections with respect to public infrastructure and things like that.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask that if Ainley had, in this case, gave their opinion and that the Director of Public Works agreed and concurred with it, then that would probably give it a bit more weighting to the committee that it's supported by staff and that we can move forward instead of, as Member Webster has indicated, you have Tatham's and Ainley's kind of giving their opinion and we're kind of in the middle, where if this director gave his concurrence that what Ainley's has indicated is he supports it, then that might help the committee understand it better. Just a thought.
Chair Gannon and Committee Member Cooney is correct that those comments are reviewed by Public Works. So, you know, it's one of those things where to protect the interests of the township, you know, Public Works needs to take a look at the comments to ensure that they're in line with the directives of the township and in the best public interest possible, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any other comments? I would like to note that it was nice to see that other departments made comments this evening, the fire chief and the director of finance. That's a long time coming. That's always been one of my bugs, is that they should be responding to that kind of stuff. And Danielle, thanks for enlarging the screen, but it's kind of hard when I'm reading it when it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's fine. All right, time to go home or go someplace, especially for Danielle. She's got a couple little kids there that missed their mom tonight. I have a motion that this Committee of Adjustment meeting held on May the 25th, 2022 now does adjourn at 9:08 p.m. All in favor? Moved by Webster, seconded by Cooney. Now all in favor. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night, everybody. Good night, Brianna. Good night, Ariel. Good night, Chris, that you're hiding in there.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, everyone.
Night.